Your favorite characters have finally arrived. We're doing Smash today on Have You Played? Andrei and our special guest, Scott DeYoung.
What's going on?
Have you guys
Heyo.
played Super Smash Brothers?
Most of them. Not all. Well, pretty sure all, but we'll get into it, I guess.
I mean,
Scott.
I've always told people I like to play Smash, and so every game except for the first one, baby.
Nice. Okay, so before we get into our usual discussion here on Have You Played, we should introduce co-founder of Connecting to Game and wonderful player of games, Scott DeYoung. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for that very impressive title. Yes, I am one of the co-founders, and I'm so hyped to be here.
Is there anything you wanted
Excellent.
to express to our listeners before we get into our Smashful discussion of this wonderful game series?
I mean, I just think that they should be ready to buckle in for a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings because this is one of those games where there's just so much history to talk about, and also I've potentially lost friends in games of Smash. So I'm here to talk. I'm here to vent.
I'm fairly sure we're gonna lose some fans once we get to sort of the ranking part of this show and we decide which ones are our favorites and we place these on a very definitive and not at all biased list of 5-1.
Yeah. No, our ranking is definitely not the meta ranking of Smash fans, I think. But, we could always use a few more nemesis in our life. So, Andrei, what is the story of Smash?
Right. So Smash is a game franchise developed by Nintendo, originally at HAL Laboratories, but more recently at Bandai Namco Studios. Was created by Masahiro Sakurai, and it's been going on since 1999. So at this point, we're 23 years in. Ultimate was the last release in 2018, but it got support, I'm pretty sure, all the way up until 2020. And so the history of Smash, I think, is deeply intertwined with the history of Nintendo consoles, spanning the N64, the GameCube, the Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U, and most recently the Switch. So there's a lot to talk about in terms of when the games came out, kind of the size of the character rosters, and how they dovetailed with Nintendo tech at the time. And, some of these games have had a much longer half-life than expected, and some have disappeared very quickly by comparison. So there's a lot to talk about with that. In terms of what the franchise is generally, it's a fighting game. It can have from 1 to 4 players in hot seat or online matches nowadays, and it features characters originally from Nintendo franchises, but most recently a host of them, including games like Sonic the Hedgehog, Final Fantasy, Minecraft, Dragon Quest, you name it, Persona 5. They've branched out in terms of what franchises they include, and depending on who you talk to, in contention for one of the greatest, if not the greatest, fighting game franchise that currently exists.
Yeah. So I guess we should start with where we came into this franchise. So Scott, you said you didn't play the first one. Andrei, were you in on the N64 here?
I was. The original Super Smash Bros. Released in 1999. I remember having sleepover parties with my grade school friends Eric and Philip, and it would be like, getting Doritos and Mountain Dew or Mellow Yellow at that time.
Yes.
And just having sleepover parties where you just play Smash, and that was all you do for 7-8 hours. Grew to deeply detest people who played Mario, for whatever that's worth. And originally, I was very much, to the surprise of no one, a Link main, which has changed over time. But this game led to pretty much everyone I knew in grade school buying it or structuring their social life around it in 1999. And then sort of articulating our enjoyment of fighting games for years to come, and like fan casting which characters would be in for games in the franchise in the future. So just like a solid experience with the first game. It was competing on the N64 with Mortal Kombat 4, which, completely different demographic and art style,
Yeah.
obviously.
Just as gory.
Well, just as corrosive to friendships, really, but that's I guess that's a different discussion.
Yeah,
'cause-
I had the same experience with the N64. It really was a sleepover game. It was, you get 4 controllers and you find, 3 friends and you hang out at each other's houses. You also fart in each other's faces and beat each other up while playing Super Smash Brothers. That's what life was like. I was in grade 7, grade 8 when this game came out, and that's what we did. Also, a lot of Mountain Dew, a lot of Doritos. And
Yep.
I too, I have changed since this era, but I too was a Link player.
Oh, yeah.
Goodness. I mean, I will say I didn't play it. It wasn't my first entryway to the series, but I have played it, and I think my experience was with specifically the NES one was Thanksgivings and Christmases at my estranged aunt's basement, where I was sent to avoid the adult festivities and therefore
Yep.
just played with cousins. And it wasn't nearly as fart on face sleepover. There were rug burns involved, definitely. But it wasn't my first one into the series. I'd already been playing the other one, so I don't think I'm as nostalgic towards it.
Just for my own public image, I want to make it clear that I was the one farted on and not the farter. Just just so that everyone knows, because I realize you might have the wrong idea about me, especially since I said I was a Link player as well. A lot of this goes together, and that's not the case.
Like
moving
12
onwards.
episodes in, we've reached the kernel of truth that we all needed to hear.
That's right.
I do think we're all like pointing to the sort of sleepover game, and I think the basement game, like the basement hangout game, really speaks to how the franchise overall has been very convivial. Like it really is about like going over to somebody's place, hanging out, like calling up all your buddies, and everybody shows up and plays. And as we grew older, those friend groups changed. I distinctly remember somebody bringing a GameCube with Melee to their wedding, and I'm not to a wedding, to their own wedding,
Right.
and not interacting with wedding guests in order to play Melee.
I mean, was the
So-
theme of the wedding Smash? In which case, totally logical.
This is a different discussion. It was a mixed theme wedding that had 2 halves. One was Disney princesses, and the other one was Marvel. But the tables also had game franchise centerpieces. So that's
Interesting.
it was a lot, but people had a great time. And just speaking to the fact that like this franchise, I think, occupies like a very special place in a lot of people's social lives. Yeah, Scott, we didn't hear about which one you started with, though.
So I started with Melee. Yeah. Because I mean, I was born in '95, so also the NES one I was a bit too young for it when it came out. But my sister convinced my parents to let us get Melee, and her and I would battle like crazy. Not over the controller, against each other. She was a Zelda Sheik player. And I don't know if I would give myself a main for Melee, because I was just someone that clicked random a lot. But I always enjoyed being Yoshi and egging people off the stage. And Pikachu, because I mean, who doesn't want to have a thunderbolt descend from the heavens 1,000 times over?
I feel like you playing Yoshi is supremely on brand.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Yoshi. I mean, Donkey Kong also could pick people up and then jump off the map. I mean, like amazing gameplay right there. I mean, those were like my 2 top strategies. My sister beat me a lot.
I don't know if I ever told the story in any of our social or work groups, but my first video game tournament I ever went and competed in was a Melee tournament. Have I told the story?
No, not at all. Tell it
I
here.
know about this. Yeah, let's. Esports
So-
player Andrei Zanescu talks about his career start right now.
No. It was terrible. But so in Montreal, there is a theme park called La Ronde, which is now Six Flags owned. And back in the late 90s, mid 2000s, La Ronde had a sort of building on site called the Nintendo Megadome that had like multiple TV sets with N64s, and it was basically kind of like a game hub. But when I say like a couple TVs, I mean about like 40, 50 TVs and like refreshments, and you'd have to like go to the theme park to go into the Megadome, which was separate from like where they had the arcades at the theme park. And they set up a Melee tournament, I think somewhere around 2003, 4. I can't exactly remember. And I played Sheik, and I think I came up 4th in the tournament, if I remember correctly. I got absolutely stomped by a Donkey Kong player.
Yeah, they jumped off the map with you on their back, didn't they?
No, they just kind of kicked the crap out of me. It was like very clear that like a lot of the people who were playing had kind of just shown up and were around, but some of the other people were like regulars. Like they knew the organizers and they were there playing. So like there was some early grassroots tournament stuff happening, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about when it comes to Melee. But yeah, I guess I never talked about it, but yeah, this was like the first competitive game event I ever went to.
And you got 4th? Do you have like a ribbon or like a trophy? I mean, 4th place, you probably don't get anything, huh?
I probably got like a bacon cheeseburger at the Nichols that was right next to
at La Ronde in Montreal. What you probably got was Saint-Hubert chicken.
Yeah. No, there was like a Nichols burger place right next to the Megadome where everybody would just go eat. It had that big like theme park in the summer. Like everyone who's working there doesn't want to be there except for like the kids.
Okay, I'm gonna tell another little mega. I'm gonna do a little sidebar here on this because the Megadome. We're probably never gonna talk about this place again. This was like, for me, I didn't grow up in Montreal, but I came here basically every summer. And one year it felt like I did like a pilgrimage because I didn't even know this place existed. But I went from Windsor, Ontario, took the ride up, went to La Ronde, and saw this giant dome, and I went inside, and there were like demo versions of Turok Dinosaur Hunter, like things that weren't even released yet. It was the nerd in 1999, 2000, 2001. It was the dream space, man. It was incredible. And you were almost the champion of that dome.
My God, they would have sat you on top of it.
I did go back and play in a bunch of Soul Calibur tournaments. If we ever do a Soul Calibur episode.
Oh my goodness.
There's a period of my life.
Esports episode from you. I mean, I want to hear the legacy and career.
I want to know, based on how much we've played competitive games together, is through that tournament, how much were your hands shaking from the stress?
Oh, I almost passed out like as soon as it was done. It was unreal. In the middle of me playing matches, I was like thinking like, why did I do this to myself? Like, why am I even here?
What a rush, man.
I mean, I will say like Melee is a very intense culture when we're talking about like the esports space there. Like I don't know if you've been to tournaments, Andrei. I mean, and I don't know if any of the listeners have ever like seen gameplay footage or been to tournaments themselves, but like it is a very interesting dynamic space compared to especially other esports. If people are like familiar with like the League and Dota scenes, it's a very different vibe.
So maybe that's a good jumping off point. Do we want to like split these 5 games and talk, very briefly about each one so we can give listeners an idea if like maybe they haven't seen
we'll do a little
5?
Short form. I mean, I think we talked about the N64 one a bit, so we can
it's the first one.
It's old.
It existed. I don't think at the time the first one was fantastic, but I think it got sort of upsold by Melee very quickly. So in terms of dates, right, the first one comes out in 1999 and Melee is out in 2001. So it's out like a year and a half, 2 years later. And Melee's still played now. So we're 21 to 22 years later, depending on when you're listening to this. And it's probably like home to one of the most passionate grassroots fighting game communities I've ever seen. It kind of subsisted off of that community, despite Nintendo kind of ignoring its existence or actively trying to push it down. during some other parts of the history. And, you know, to give a sort of number, original Super Smash sold for about 5 million total units between the US and Japan. And Melee, if I have the numbers right, has accounted for 70% of all GameCube owners. So like 70% of people who own GameCubes own Melee. And it had sold approximately 4.6 million units. So kind of the same numbers, but just the proportion of people who own this and own that console is like almost 1-to-1. Like it's one of the, you buy a GameCube to play Smash.
Well, didn't they
in a lot of
bundle it?
cases.
I swear it was bundled when there was like bundles when you bought the GameCube. It came with 2 games, and one of them was almost always Smash or Mario Kart.
That might be the case, actually. I can't remember for the
I'm pretty
GameCube.
sure that they bundled the Smash with the GameCube, which was amazing, by the way.
I'm sure it happened. I think I was like a ground floor GameCube haver, and that wasn't bundled with this. And so I actually am one of the few people. I'm in the 30% of folks who didn't own a copy of Melee.
Wow. So I didn't own a GameCube. It's the system I skipped. I owned a 64 and I own a Switch now, but I effectively could only play the 3 middle installments when I was over at friend's place, probably which is why it has that kind of connotation for me. But I also technically am not like a Melee owner, I suppose.
All right.
But yeah,
if you were, you would have won that tournament.
Oh, maybe. Who knows? And Melee's notable for also having a much larger roster of characters compared to the original game. So the original game, I think, had, I want to say 16 characters.
Had 12.
If I'm not mistaken. 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 12. It's 12.
Thank you for, for checking the work. And Melee's above the 30 mark.
No, 26.
26. God damn it. I feel like all my numbers are
and
off.
he played pro, guys. I mean,
no, I literally just went like I like Sheik, but
yeah, you don't need to know the details to mash those buttons to hell.
It's true. So a pretty big jump up in terms of representation of characters and the franchises that the console started putting in, right? So this is when the Fire Emblem characters come in. So for all you Marth mains like me, this is when things really went off the rails. But there are also inclusions of like Toon characters and trying to remember like specific Melee additions to the roster. Star Wolf's after this, I'm pretty sure.
Ice Climbers, Falco.
Ice Climbers, let's go.
Bowser wasn't in the original.
They did bring in Falco as well.
So one of the interesting things to talk about also is, aside from the first one that had like a 79% Metacritic score, all of these are between 92 and 93%. So they're about, critically, they've all been received about as well, which is really interesting given that 2 of these are really not enjoyed as much as Melee or, kind of tipping the hand a little bit. Ultimate seems to have settled into a pretty positive position. So up next in 2008, 7 years after Melee, is Brawl on Wii. And this is where I can tell fans that I'm an extremely weird gamer because I would go to parties, and because of the dearth of classic and GameCube controllers running around, somebody had to play with the nunchuck, and I played with the nunchuck voluntarily.
No, I certainly the 2 of us are both on this train.
No. All 3 of us are on this train, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even plan this before. This is so weird.
We are representing a group here that does not care about the competitive meta, does not care about the validity of the game. I am a Brawl lover.
I mean, that nunchuck, man, it really added a whole different level to the gameplay,
I'm so happy.
It felt like playing it with an old, like, original NES controller is what it felt like.
Yeah. I would also say Brawl is kind of for me, in terms of where I was at when I started playing it, and you might have this too, Mark. I imagine Scott no, but this is like my I'm I'm an adult now game. So this came out 2008. I was 19 going on 20. So this is when we all started having part-time jobs. Everybody had a car. Some people were starting to move out. So this was like when it went from being like Doritos and Mountain Dew to like pizza and beer Friday night. Like everybody can sleep over because we don't have work in the morning. Kind of the time when we could play it. And so we started playing a lot more of it. A lot of us were adults. A lot of us started bringing like new people to the group. I don't know. Where were you at when you played this, Mark?
Completely different. I I was in a nice relationship, and my partner lived with a couple other folks, and those folks had a kid, and their kid liked Brawl, and so I would hang out with their child, jamming some Brawl games while I was over there. And that's what Brawl was for me, and it was great. It was a great memory, and also, full disclosure, when that kid would leave, I would just jam the Brawl story mode by myself, and like
Yes.
I was hooked on that. And I've been so disappointed that like they didn't elevate that in the other releases, really. Like they've done like challenges and they've done like that Star Road thing, but it wasn't the same. Like whatever
fair.
they tried to turn that story mode into is like, man, a full-blown epic Smash saga that was like promised in Brawl, we never really got.
The
Yeah.
subspace emissary.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
so good.
Yeah.
I swear, like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people actually hated it because it was super weird and janky. Like I don't know how much you guys remember of it. There's like
No,
those
it's
like
awful.
floating fish with like a big
No.
eyeball. The
No,
maps
I'm not
didn't
in.
really make sense together. And then of course
Mm.
you to spoil it for everyone, you fight, like the hand or whatever at the end. But it was amazing.
Yeah.
Top tier.
No, it really was. Like this game, I will fully admit that like I see all the reasons why this is like the most derided game, but there's such a core memory of just having a nice time jamming games of this with this little kid.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know, it's like a core memory that it makes it so that the gameplay issues that people have a problem with Brawl, which is like the auto slip thing where you just have a chance to fall on dash, I believe is the thing that competitive players don't like. um and overall game feel, and then that campaign that also wasn't really beloved for me. They just all worked for where I was in that moment. And like, I'm gonna be honest, Smash is a series I don't take all that seriously. I just think it's always great to have fun with it, and this was probably tied for the time I had the most fun playing Smash.
How dare you enjoy a game non-competitively?
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
I would say that, like, for me, my experience with the whole Smash franchise could be broken down into my casual experience with it and my much more like competitive technical experience with it. And I mean, Brawl and Melee for me were just like me as a kid or like a young teen playing these games. And then later in my life, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the other games, I came back to those games into like really hardcore communities. And so like I realized that my button smashing ways were no longer acceptable. Um, and so I had like two different the kind of mindsets when it comes to these games. And for me, Brawl, it was actually compared to you two, it was actually a very solo adventure. So my sister was a bit older, and so she wasn't playing those games as much. I went to a school in a space where video games were not very popular. So it was for me like that story mode and the level maker. I don't know if you ever used the level maker, guys, but
Yes,
you could like make your own
Love it, yeah.
maps, and they were
absolutely.
ridiculous and amazing. That's what I jammed my hours doing, and it was a much more of a solo game for me, which is weird for like the whole series. I mean, I still had friends come over for sleepovers and stuff, but it wasn't nearly as much of like a culture for me to like play that with other people.
So one of the things also that I really liked about Brawl, or I think it showed up at the exact right moment for me to be able to do this, was when I built my own computer. And the soundtrack for Brawl is kind of notorious for having a lot of video game franchise remasters. So over 38 composers from different franchises coming to redo songs, like Gerudo Valley, if you're a Zelda person, is one example. It's like that was when, like, even when I wasn't playing Brawl, I could like be driving to work or to class and listen to the Brawl soundtrack, and like it would hype me up. So it was like a very positive experience around the game. I do understand why, like you said, Mark, it's not the one that I think has had the longer half-life competitively, and it's sort of been replaced by newer installments for casual fans. But I think it was still like pretty good. And in terms of sales numbers, so I actually messed this up for Melee, which is my bad. You know, I said the first game had about around 4 million, 5 million sales. Second game around 7 million, and this game went on to have, if I'm not mistaken, 13 million copies sold, which makes it the 8th best-selling Wii game of all time.
It's a lot.
And yeah, I mean, we're not talking about like a couple people playing this game. This is a lot of folks. And the roster itself was a lot bigger, right? If
They brought in my boy Diddy Kong.
Right. This is the Diddy Kong installment. I was
39 characters in here before you give us the incorrect number.
Number of characters is 39.
Yeah.
25 originally from the start, and then several added over time. For me, this was, again, if I'm not mistaken, the one that had Sonic come in, and I was very happy to piss people off by just bouncing around the map.
I mean, yeah, for any button mashers, you also had Meta Knight come out in this game, and that B button was amazing. For those who don't know, his B button, he spun into a tornado, but it took priority, or which means it would stop other abilities from happening. And so you could just spam the B button, fly around the map as a tornado, and no one could really do much about it. I mean, professional players could, but
I wasn't allowed to play him at parties.
Oh, he got banned everywhere.
Yeah, no, a mechanic that recently reappeared in multiverses with the Taz character. Like, it's just like we've learned no lessons about giving priority to auto spin abilities, although they did fix that. But
so if we want to talk about the fourth game, so this one, it has like different titles depending on what you want to call it, right? Commonly called Smash Bros. 4. Depending on what platform you had it for, it's either Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS or Smash Bros. For Wii U, because there were two versions. And depending on where you were and what system you were playing it on, it released quarter 4 of 2014. So somewhere between mid-September and early December. So there was like a pretty big difference in terms of when people got to play it, and I'm pretty sure the 3DS version came out ahead of the Wii U version, so some people got to play that one. And this one, it's the one I like the least. And I remember I was working in retail around this time, in games retail, and this was the one that was a bit controversial because of its inclusion of amiibos, and sort of having additional purchases for the game and not having everything integrated into it, and also the problem of it being on split systems, which kind of split its sales across two systems and the player base as well.
Except,
I don't know. What about?
I was in Japan when this thing came out, and this thing was enormous and beloved.
Really?
And my students would always ask me, Mark, do you know Smabra, which is what Smash Brothers is called? And they would always ask me what characters I'm playing. You know, they'd ask me if I'm good. and I went hard on this. So like, not even just my students, but like the other like teaching community in Japan. There's a bunch of gamers that go over there to teach, right? And so I was like, this is an event, and they sold the connector for the Wii U that made it like an old GameCube for controller input, and they sold the GameCube controllers. Like, they just reissued them and put them out for this game exclusively. And so I bought 4 controllers, a multi-tap, a copy of this game, and had parties in Japan with all the teachers that were there that wanted to jam some Smash Brothers. And like, this, more than any other game, brought back that feel of the N64 version with the polish of modern video games, although somewhat of that lackluster brawl feel, I think, where it didn't totally recapture the magic. Like, the image of the magic was there, but the vibe wasn't the same. Like, we only had a couple of these parties, and I was like, I spent a lot of money on all of this, and I was kind of hoping to get more out of it. But That's one of the things too, though, is that like a lot of folks love Smash Brothers, but like that competitive casual player divide, like you really notice it when you have one of these events compared to what it used to be like playing with your friends in that Dorito Mountain Dew sleepover, right? Like it
Yeah.
has changed. And I know some people in those groups felt really alienated in those events because some players go super hard on these games, and it's almost hard to find any intersection where you don't have that kind of tension within the player group, even if you're doing like a casual we're just hanging out at this place event.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the really interesting things that I think you're touching on is sort of regional differences in this game's uptake.
Yeah.
And so it might be useful to talk about the sales numbers real quick, because the 3DS version almost doubled the Wii U version sales. So the 3DS sold 9 million copies worldwide, and the Wii U sold 5 million. And my sense from talking to you and Game News at the time is that the 3DS had the DS itself and the 3DS just were much more prevalent as a gaming system in Japan than
For
they
sure.
were here.
Yeah.
And so talking to mostly people who had Wii U's, and not everybody was like on board this, versus what it sounds like it was for you, that's like a really interesting, almost like there are two versions of this game, and one is much more popular contextually than the other one.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to remember too, the Wii U was not a well-loved device to begin with, right?
No.
Like this thing was not set up to succeed on the Wii U to begin with. Like there was no way that was going to happen.
So,
Yeah.
out of curiosity, did you guys play with items or no items?
No items.
Yeah, I'm a no items player, and in those
Okay.
parties, a lot of the players would like to have items because they
Mhm.
don't like it. It's a completely different philosophy towards what these games are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
it.
have. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't hate it, but what would tend to happen at parties would be like everybody would show up, and the evening would start with items, and then either people would get done and want to go do something else, or just go hang out in the kitchen, like, you know, getting beers or something. And then the people who would stay in front would be like, okay, now the normies are gone, turn off the items. And then then you would have like the second part of the evening, which would be like the no item, like hardcore in quotation marks, players who would like stick around and be, or think that they're more serious about the game. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Scott.
No, but let me paint you a picture, okay? You're playing Link because or Marth, you know, you got your little sword out and you're facing against an incredible Diddy Kong player like me.
Mhm.
And you know, I'm hitting you with peanuts and you're trying to combo your swords, but it's super ineffective. And so you're taking more and more damage. And then out of the blue, a tomato falls from the sky and you
Mhm.
consume it, getting all your HP back, and then you absolutely destroy me. See, that is the level of gameplay that I was always just so in love with, because it really felt fair. You know, it really felt like all my efforts were really accomplished when people got items that could just one-shot me, like a hammer.
Yeah, just
Sounds
like
like you love
like in
items.
Mario Party, a game that I know you love.
Oh, God.
Mario Party is not a game; it is a waste of life and friendships. But
Oof.
that is for another episode. I have
Yeah.
too many feelings about that game. But no, I have, in all seriousness though, when it comes to items, I actually appreciated them a lot until it became a point where my status was reflected in my ability to play Smash, in which case items would always destroy me. So when I was playing by myself as a kid with my sister, we actually would go through the list and determine which items were okay to play with and which ones
Yes.
weren't. Like we had like a bans and picks list
Yeah.
almost. We always kept the Pokeballs, but we always banned the hammers. Yeah, go ahead.
I remember like a lot of people that I played with would keep most of the items, but would remove the like the ship or the torpedo, like all the things that were like kind of one-shot items. So like stars, torpedoes, ultimate moves.
Well, the
and
ultimate moves are so cool though. I always kept the Orban. I thought that was super viable to keep
So
in those games.
I think over time, kind of where it settled, by the time we got to Ultimate, was like you play only with the Ultimate. If there's any
Yeah.
items, that's like the one that stays in. exactly because like people are like, but it's like so cool. I want to see the.
They're just
the
so
big
cool.
move.
They are. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, it's half the reason you pick a character sometimes is for like the cool ultimate that you can put up, especially in like a 4-person game. Like I get like the 1v1, where like sometimes the orb appears while you're like dying off screen. But like in a 4-player game when everyone's trying to fight for the orb and then you can like knock it out of people. Oh,
No, it's true.
perfection.
I feel the need to defend myself for a second here. Because by the time we got to this game, I was no longer a basic Marth player. I had evolved into a very refined Ike player.
Oh, okay.
So I went to play the Marth character that is just slower and has the bigger sword, which generally has been my move in most games that I play. Is like I used to play rogues and rangers, and now I just play big warriors for some reason. I don't know what that says about me.
I remember getting really into Pit when he came out, and then I also got super into Snake because the ability to fire a homing missile that you had to control while your character just sat there, or to taunt people by going underneath a box, was just so
I
good.
think that's the reason, Scott. It's not the missile, it's the taunting. Come on, let's
I
be
thought
real.
the missile was pretty fun though, and you could like put mines. It was one of the reasons I think I like all of the games across the board is because you have the weirdest things of like you have Snake shooting like a homing missile and planting mines on the battlefield while you have Mario and Dr. Mario walking around just like doing their own thing with fireballs and pills.
It's great.
Like that, you don't capture that everywhere, you know.
No, I like multiverses for the same reason. It's it's like it is a curious environment.
That game was fun
while it lasted. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's still going, but we'll see for how long that's going. Since we're putting our characters out there right now, I will just throw out that I am mainly settled into 2 characters, one of whom is Little Mac, because I like to punch people unfairly off the screen. And Shirtless Shulk are my 2 modern day
respectable
characters.
Well, I think we can have like a top 3 once we get through the last game because the roster gets so much bigger.
Yes.
So maybe that's the we're up to the final game.
Yeah,
so Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah.
PD Piranha
comes out in 2018. And comparatively to the games that we talked about before, so we didn't. I don't think we mentioned the number of playable characters that there were in the DS version. There were 58, 51 on release, 7 on DLC. Ultimate has a supremely large roster.
What's the
if
number,
I'm not
Andrei?
mistaken, it's 89. Which is
that including all of the like the DLCs?
Yeah,
like
it's including everything.
Pretty big.
I don't know if that noise filtered in.
No, but I have a serious question for you. Do you count the Mii characters as 3 separate characters or as one?
Listen, when I was putting this list together, I wasn't thinking about it that much. Okay. I didn't do that split. To me, if they have different moves, they are different characters. So, your mileage may vary on that. But generally, the largest roster, and by all accounts, a smash hit. So has 93, which puts it up top critically with other games in the franchise. I think the only one that has 92 is Brawl, and the original has 79. And to the last game's 14 million sold units, this game sold 28 million units, which, if my numbers are correct, makes it the highest selling individual fighting game all time. Which is
That's a lot of game.
Yeah.
Like I think we tend to have this idea, especially where we work, that like Smash is the least serious fighting game compared to something like Street Fighter or Tekken, or that there are these franchises that are so oversized. Like Street Fighter, for example, has such a large footprint in the fighting game culture, but like Smash is big outside of that community. Smash is just big with everyone who loves any of the individual franchises that it's grown to include things like Mega Man, things like Splatoon are now part of it, Street Fighter's in, and all the older characters. I know for this one I was super excited because they added Castlevania characters. So enormous. And also has, back to the discussion about Brawl with the Agent, this game has the longest running campaign, which I think I once got close to completing and never finished. I don't know about you two.
No, nowhere near.
I mean, it wasn't the subspace emissary, so for me, it just wasn't the same. I'd never beat it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's really
this was
interesting
a lot
because
of fun.
functionally it doesn't feel too different, but something about the vibe of it just didn't work the same. Like I wasn't compelled to
Hooked.
continue.
Is it
Yeah.
the age? Is it that we're older now and we just have like less time to devote to it?
It probably.
I mean, that'd be a factor for sure. I think across
'Cause-
the board, right?
Yeah. I'm just curious, like, our assessment of these games is it is very contextual. Like, this is the game that I can on paper recognize as probably like one of the most beloved, or like communally probably the most beloved one. And yet it is not the one that I spent the most time playing. That's fine, I guess. I don't know.
I'm there too, in that this is a really beloved game, and I have probably played it the least out of all of them.
I mean, it sounds like we have to have a Smash party. That's what this sounds like to me.
I accept.
Well, who
Yeah.
knows? So now that we have them all set up, right, it's very clear that like as time has gone on, these games have been trending. Like there's more characters, they score about as well, and they sell more and more, with the last one being the most popular. But here's my question for you. Which one
Yes.
is your favorite? Like which I know the one that you started with, but that might not be the one that you love the most. So now in 2022, looking back, which one would you put up as your, undisputed champion? Or maybe disputed, depending on how your
Scott, would you
rankings
like
shake
to go
out.
first?
Oh, I'm actually really kind of contemplating this one, actually. So yeah, no, take it first.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking here.
So for me, my favorite, I think I had a different answer when we started this. I think I was gonna be like the original is the best, but no, I actually think I like the 3DS Wii U one the best, even though like the parties didn't work out the same way. It was, for me, it was cool that all my students were having their time with it, and it was something that we could talk about in Japan. Like it was a way of relating to the Japanese students, and those parties that I had, even though they didn't work out super well, like they were still a good time. Like people were just joyfully playing this game that we kind of all had these really fond memories of playing the N64 version and the Melee version. And even though there was that like competitive division that formed in these parties, like we were still sharing in something that, while we didn't pursue this beyond 2 or 3 get-togethers, it was like, well, we're here now and it's fun. And like I'm happy that I spent the $300 or whatever it was on those controllers for that alone, because it was a really good time. And I think that that's what resonates the most with me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a really good point. And I mean, we are, for, all those lists, like we are talking about this from being able to like go through them. Like if, you're a bit younger than us and Ultimate was one of the first games you came across, I would expect that you'd have different thoughts around all of these. For myself, I mean, if I'm going to go through all 5 and explain kind of where I was for each, and then I'll give you my winner. Okay. So N64, as I mentioned, was my estranged aunt's basement on the holidays. So great time. Melee was me and my sister mostly in my parents' basement. So I moved from a strange aunt to my own basement. So I guess we're moving on up in the world. Brawl was me mostly by myself with the occasional sleepover. So it was a weirdly independent game for me. I didn't mention this before, but the Wii U 3DS version was when I was working at a at-risk youth center. And the youth would come in who were on the brink of homelessness, and the center was a place for them to get food and stuff. But they would come in and they'd play Smash for like 6 hours every night, because the center was open from 4 p.m. till about 10 or 11. And they would just come and play Smash. And as like a volunteer and like worker in that space, part of my job was just to build relationships with the youth. So a lot of my time on those 3DS spaces was like really collaborative. We had tournaments and we had big games, but they were all really good. And I was like mocked constantly. And I don't think, I mean, no one here, I mean, you two can maybe vouch for how I'm decent at games. I don't think I'm like the worst person at Smash,
No,
but
you're
like
good.
these people blew me out of the water. And I mean, to make a pun, they smashed me. But then Ultimate was when I just moved to Montreal to start doing my masters, and so that kind of came out, and that's when I was like making new friends in the city, but then also trying to find things to do on my own. And so it was like it came at a time of like a lot going on in my life. So I weirdly am actually going to agree with Mark that for me the most enjoyable experiences I had with the game was the 3DS Wii U one, because there was such a culture around it then. It was the most socially engaged I was with that game. I think from a polished perspective and from a character perspective, I do think Ultimate is a fantastic game. And I do have a soft spot for Melee, but if I had to choose one out of the three, I would put a Wii U 3DS there.
Interesting. This is gonna be really hard when we like
Oh,
negotiate.
people
a
are gonna
collective
leave
list.
our fan base. I mean, all 5 fans are just gone after this.
They're out.
For me, I think the answer is like fairly uncomplicated, despite having I think fond memories for multiple installments of this franchise. The one that I think is my favorite, like when I am playing it, I have the most fun playing it. It's Ultimate. I just really enjoy how much game there is. I did play the story mode for something like 180 hours, so it did, fulfill a lot of like the promise of that mode. And then the roster of characters is just unreal. Like there's so many different. I've gone through like phases where I had a moment when I was like, I'm a Mega Man player, and then I had another like Greninja phase, and now it's different, And I will say, I think my experience with this game is twofold. One is like around when we started hanging out, Scott, because I think that was when we got it at the lab and we were playing a bunch in our lunch breaks and we had time. But my partner asked me to buy this game like last year, and so I had like a very like post all the DLC experience with it, like coming back to it and being like, no, it's still as good as it was when it came out in 2018. And it's like a fantastic like keeping the pandemic at bay game for me. So it for those reasons I would put it up top, in a way that the other games I don't think live in my imagination in the same way.
Would you say it's the ultimate choice on your list?
Yes it is. Okay, so we have an idea of the games. Do you want to do the list of these games first, or do you want to talk about your like top 3 characters?
I actually don't think we need to rank them, because I think what we found here is like the ranking. It's your like, these games are social glue, right? Like for whatever the rank is going to be, I think it's hard to judge these games based on like the quality of what they're giving. It's so much of like where you are at the time and I don't know what they mean.
Can I posit a reverse then of if there's one character you hate the most in all the Smash characters, who do you hate the most?
That's good. I think we can talk about our favorite characters though, but the games themselves, I don't actually think we need to rate, because we're all going to have such a different investment, and any of our listeners too. The game you love the most is probably the one where you played it, who was around you, the people you loved and played it with.
I don't want to poo-poo anyone's choice in these games, and
sure.
Even if there are people who are like, the N64 is the best one for me, like I might not feel that way, but I certainly understand.
Like, even you can't go wrong.
Yeah, like I can see liking all of them, and like I think if we rank these, we're gonna like really upset someone's very earned sensibilities of this, and I don't think these are really fair to critique in that way from the way we do this podcast, because we're not here to break down the technical aspects of the game. We're really not here to shit on things. That's not the point, right? And these are all lovable, even if they're lovable like Brawl for reasons that are maybe suspect as a Brawl enjoyer. But characters, we can shit on characters.
Yeah.
So we're doing faves or least fave?
Maybe we do top 3, and then we will have an argument about who needs to be removed out of this game.
So let's do it. Let's do it like round robin style. So we'll do like each one's number 3, then number 2, then number 1 for everyone. We can like build up to.
We're going across franchise here, right?
Oh yeah, you can it's the whole series.
If you want to specify, I think Ultimate has everyone that's been in the games prior. But if you want to be like, I prefer Link in X version of the game, sure. It's totally fine.
So our number 3, I will start with my number 3. My number 3 is Robin. the Fire Emblem commander.
I'm surprised it's this low for you, actually, because I remember you playing this character an enormous amount and really enjoying the play style.
Yeah. I do
Okay.
really like it, but there are 2 characters I just played the hell out of.
So it's like a distant number 3 for you. It's not like
No, it's close. All 3 are close. And I don't really like to rank things too much in my personal life, but for the purpose of a list, Robin is 3. But Robin is also number 1 and number 2. Like all 3 are interchangeable for me pretty much.
that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Scott, do you have your number 3?
But this is so hard. So I'm gonna give my rankings based off time played. I think like who I spent the most time.
Oh, it's a
playing.
good idea.
Because I personally, for anyone who doesn't know anything about how I play games, I like to play the weird, the wacky, and typically the unloved. And so I played a lot of random stuff. Like Wii Fit Trainer was like Bay, and like I had a lot of time on Mr. Game and Watch, but I wouldn't consider them in like my top. So I think I'm going like off time played. My third would be Palutena
Oh.
from the Pit, the Kid Icarus stuff.
Yeah, which is the mage kind of character, right?
Yeah, she had her beams. She was blasting people, and she had like a little card that could like block projectiles. Yeah,
Palutena's awesome.
And she was fantastic. She was really hard to play, and I actually stopped playing her when I got into that competitive group of people because every time I played her, I just got bodied. But I played a lot of hours on her
I'm with
those
you.
games when I have my own time,
As someone,
especially in Ultimate.
As someone who's adjacent to the weird, wacky, unloved, like those are always my second tier characters. They're not the mains, but they're the stuff I like to play for fun. Yeah, I'm right there with you on Palutena.
She's amazing.
Incredible.
Andre? Is it going to be
Ganondorf?
Oh, I
I got into playing Ganondorf. I think people have been telling me for years to try it out because they felt like it would be a good fit for the kind of playstyles I like. And I started playing it during the campaign mode for Ultimate, and then I ended up playing a crap ton of Ganondorf. It's not like my favorite character. Like there's a big gap between like my favorite character and Ganondorf. But I do think I really enjoy like that high damage playstyle, especially when, you know, I was playing with people I knew who would get like scared during matches because you get to do so much damage. And so there's like a I'm spooking people.
A lot of space control around your character. And that air grab too. It's beautiful beautiful stuff.
It's like and also I felt like compared to some of the other characters, the characters that I put above Ganondorf, I was like punished for playing poorly and rewarded for playing well because like when you would do things, you would commit because of his slowness to.
He was so slow.
Man.
I do remember playing against him though, and I don't know if you guys remember, his walk was like the most like he was a slow walker, but he was also like hunched over and kind of like creeping over to people with like his big footsteps, and it always makes me chuckle when he's like, "I'm coming for you," and then you're like playing as like a piranha plant just scurrying away in your pot, and you can't even keep up.
So we'll do my number 2. I kind of spoiled this list already, but my number 2 is shirtless Shulk. You have to play Shulk with no shirt. It's critical to your success. Why do I like this character? I like the complexity of like switching your stat or like giving yourself a little boost to something that you do. I think that's so fun to me, and it's a little spice on the formula, right? And that's really why I enjoy it. It's not the sword, it's not the edginess. It is partly that he has a skin with no shirt, but
that's right.
But yeah, I mean, I just like the extra flexibility of like, or not even flexibility, but even like you have to narrow your play style in this moment to what you've chosen to commit to, and I like that idea. It's fun gameplay for me.
Well, for listeners who haven't played games with you, I think this is something that you gravitate towards in a lot of games, like characters or classes that give you a lot of options. And Robin had that as well. Like it's a very optional character. With like,
it is what I like. A lot of gameplay in my game, right? Like I like to have a ton of flexibility.
It's true. Scott, what's your numero dos?
I'm not even gonna say the name. I'm just gonna say PK Fire, baby. PK Fire, my homeboy. We control that with our little electro balls, little icicles. Good time. Good time.
Andrei has logged off from the call.
PK fire. Yeah.
You can love whatever you want to love, but oh god.
Listen,
Good
this is
time.
a great character in the game Earthbound. In the game Smash, this is not a character that needs to exist.
What are you talking about? You can propel yourself with your own lightning bolt. It's fantastic.
Well, let's move on. Andrei.
My number 2 is Greninja. So an almost a complete
Weird.
flip from Ganondorf. I really like playing Greninja. It's one of those characters that I did not expect to enjoy playing or to be good at, but just ended up being something that I played for a long time. I think I started playing Greninja prior to Ultimate because I'm pretty sure he was in the 3DS Wii U version of the game. And I don't know, it just worked for me. The substitute move I really like, but it's like the dashes and the like the
He's
very
fun
fast
to play.
zoning.
He's so fun to play.
There's just like a thing where I think Greninja fulfilled the play style that I wish Pikachu and Sonic had, like the actual like feeling of being very fast in the game. So that's it. Also, it was my like Greninja was my Pokemon starter for that generation of Pokemon as well. So there was like an overlap of like I was.
So if I'm ranking Pokemon in that game, I loved Mewtwo. I think he's underrated. Top tier.
He's one of the original, right? He was in.
Yeah, he's from start to
there
finish,
since-
and he's so good every time.
That's true. All right, and now we're up to
Our
number
top,
ones.
our number one. So my number one is Little Mac.
Yeah.
Again, not super versatile, but I really like the horizontal game on Little Mac of like he crosses that floor very fast, and you can really punish people for being in the wrong spot. And it I don't think he was ever the best character, but he was a supremely annoying character, and he could ring out people very easily. And
Well,
found
and how
that to be really
satisfying
fun.
is the KO?
It's satisfying as hell, and that's what really makes it for me. Is like this just feels so fun to do.
Is there any like nostalgia for Lil Mac's home series when you play this? Like, does it also bring you back to your childhood with like Punch Out?
Punch Out? Do I have nostalgia for Punch Out? Okay, so I had Punch Out. I had a copy of Punch Out for NES. No. I don't even know if it's possible to have nostalgia for Punch Out. It's barely a game.
Oh, I know a lot of people who are about 5-6 years older than us who have like extreme nostalgia for Punch Out.
No, I mean I could see it. I mean it was like, yeah.
I think we were maybe too young. I think that might be
it.
It's
I
the
don't know, but I
generation.
had the copy. I was there. Mike Tyson was a thing at the time. Like he was a big deal, and it did nothing for me. Nothing at all.
All right, Scott, what's your?
I mean, I think I've already mentioned, but Diddy Kong will always and forever be my go-to when in doubt. I mean, you get to throw a banana on the ground, you got your peanut gun, you can jump onto people and then bop them on the head. You got full-on cartwheel with the guy. I mean, and you get to wear a baseball cap. It's just across the board everything you could dream of.
So we've narrowed it down to Mark really enjoys characters that have either a wide range of options or very divergent gameplay that feels satisfying. And Scott enjoys characters that make me want to stop playing the game when they're against me. And
I like just high skill ceiling characters.
Sure. That's the vector of play that is being rewarded here. My number one I mentioned earlier as sort of a late swap in the franchise for me, and it's Ike. And much like Lil Mac for you, Mark, I really enjoy vertical as opposed to horizontal ring outs with Ike.
Right.
Like the sort of the feeling that people had against Ganondorf, where it's like if I make a mistake and I get hit once, the match is just over. And like being able to just really zone opponents, but also kind of maybe the opposite of Mark's choices. I like characters that don't have a lot of options. So all the sword characters appeal to me because down B is a counter move, which means I'm not using it offensively. So there's a lot less stuff for me to think about. And I can just focus on hunting down and terrorizing people because they took the last slice of pizza when I wanted it. And I think that's why I play Smash, is just to be vindictive.
I mean,
Now, how many times have you actually gotten a kill on Ike's big charge up with his sword, where he just
Oh.
blasts the ground with fire?
Like never.
Yeah.
Most of my kills are with A attacks. It's like A up in air. It's
Yeah, I was
like a
gonna
lot
say
of hopping
every
around.
time I played Ike, I'm like, I sit there and I charge it, and I'm like, no one's ever gonna fall for this.
No,
Um,
that's a move that exists only when somebody else is playing Jigglypuff. Is kind of
okay,
my
can
feel
we talk about
it.
most hated characters now? Because you definitely
Yeah.
tipped one of mine right there.
Do you want to go? You seem.
so we each get one.
Look,
We each get to
Yeah,
get
if
we
rid
get
I
of
one.
could remove a character, it's Jigglypuff, and
Okay.
it's not because they're not cute, and it's not because they're a small pink ball. It's because every time I play them, no one ever falls asleep, and I always get stuck being asleep. And then every time someone else plays them, I get put asleep and killed instantly by that fall asleep ability. And it's never worked for me ever.
Yeah, I'm with
And
you.
so therefore, it's my least favorite and worst character in the game.
Yeah, you and I have the exact same Jigglypuff experience where, like, on paper, this looks like something I would really like to be playing, and I am killed by it constantly, and I don't think I've ever killed anyone on a Jigglypuff.
No, it's like
I just don't get it.
KO. I swear it's impossible.
Some people though.
Look, if anyone listening wants to send me like a Twitter message on how to actually kill people with Jigglypuff, please do, because I've tried. I've gotten them asleep. I've broken their shield too, and they're just standing there, and I like think I'm lined up, and I do the thing, and then nothing happens.
You're just gonna get a twit longer telling you why like Jigglypuff is the best character, and you're wrong.
There are some pros that like main Jigglypuff, and it's crazy if you ever watch. If you ever watch like professional Smash gameplay, this is what I sometimes watch on my Saturday nights at 2 a.m. when I don't want to go to bed. Good time. Good time.
Andrei?
Impressive gameplay.
It's Ness. I hate Ness. I hope Ness is deleted from the collective unconscious and never appears in any game ever again. I've had to deal with 23 years of hearing PK Fire. That's too much PK Fire.
What
And
about
and you
him
never hear
being
PK
paid?
Fire once. You hear it like 20 times in a row because the
It's
people who
true.
are playing him spam it ad nauseum.
Uh,
There are other characters I like. I'm not a fan of in the franchise. Like I wish they hadn't been included. Like I think like We Fit Trainer is kind of too weird. Like it kind of breaks the game. a
immersion
little
for
bit.
you? That's
Yeah,
where
actually.
that's where it breaks. That's your immersion breaking point.
We Fit Trainer is the one that
We
like
Fit
I'm just like I can't. You know, Snake with a bazooka in this is fine, but We Fit Trainer is where I draw the line.
You know, I there's no such thing as like an objective truth, but you're wrong here. We Fit Trainer's amazing.
Yeah, no, they're
Well, I don't-
incredible.
I'm not saying
It's a
they're a
kick
great
soccer
character
ball
to
at someone.
play. I'm not saying they're not a great character to play. I'm saying like, you know, narratively, I'm happier seeing Kazuya from Tekken than I am seeing We Fit Trainer.
But what about the
Um,
Minecraft boys? Because that actually did break a
fine
little
with
bit the
it.
immersion for me.
You know, I think what it is for me with We Fit Trainer is I was once punched by a client while I was working retail so that they could try to steal a We Fit, and I don't think I've ever gotten over that. So
Mm.
that might be my trauma relating to the franchise.
The character I would remove is Mario. I don't really hate him as a
Wait,
character.
Dr. Mario or regular
No, regular Mario and the Doctor. I would remove two. One, give his brother some time to shine. Mario needs a break. He's been doing a lot of heavy lifting for quite some time. That's.
I mean,
that's what
Luigi
I
is
remember.
secretly a blast to play, especially at Ultimate.
Interesting.
I
wanna
don't know
make
if
a
you remember.
case?
They gave. Okay, I mean, he's got like the charge up on the side B where he can like he squats down and he like charges all energy and then he flies himself as a torpedo. But the actual fun one is if you're running really fast on him and then you hit the A button, he just takes his like hands and does like a oh my gosh, what's that dance move called where you like spin your knuckles around? Or like if you're like practicing boxing and you're like hitting the thing really fast, it looks like you're just going like hand over hand over hand over hand over hand. Anyway, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about at all. Maybe I sound like a complete insane person right now. But he does that and it like rattles people and it's good time. It's good time.
I believe. Before we end this podcast, I did want to propose a Smash only segment where if you could add any one character from anything into Smash, who would you add?
Oh man. From anything?
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be a character. It could be a person if you want.
So I could just throw Andrei in Smash, see how he does.
Yeah, you could if you wanted to.
My move would be anxiety.
That's Smash VR, guys. That's about 10 years down the road. Let me think about that.
So interestingly, as we went on to record this podcast at the start of it, you guys secretly spoiled what was my pick for this, and I kind of want Elon Musk in Smash just so we can ring him out again and again and again.
Oh goodness. But what if he's secretly like too good?
His move would be buying Twitter and throwing a little blue bird at you, and then you catch fire.
Every time you press the B button, you just gain 50 damage to yourself, but somehow you're always in the ring.
Well, you can probably pay off your damage taken too. Like he just has like a button, you just spend billions of dollars and you're
It's
healed.
like B up, just like a Tesla. Like
no, you'd have like the
screen
Wario
from
thing
that.
with the bike, but it's him jumping in a Tesla. Yeah.
But then
Incredible.
the Tesla catches fire.
It sells itself, although
Fair. Depressing, but fair.
yeah, exactly. As all my choices are.
In the spirit of generosity, since I don't really like, I feel like I've been catered to with this franchise greatly, and we just talked about Marc's great love of characters with modular movesets. I would love to include a version of Thrall from World of Warcraft with like all the elements and the totems, and have like a modular elemental playstyle.
That'd be rad.
For
Thrall
Marc
would
to enjoy.
fit right in. He's
Yeah, I
already
can see
in
that.
the style.
Yeah.
I love
He's
his
got all
beads.
his, all his-
Okay. This is gonna sound really weird, and this is for the exact opposite reason of Marc. So you wanted Musk in because you wanted to beat him up constantly. I don't
Yeah.
want this person to get beat up in any capacity, but I think it would be amazing for the game if David Attenborough was a playable character, who just his mechanics all involved commentating on what's actually going on in the game.
I wish you could see my face right now.
Kind of like Pokemon Trainer, you know how he's like in the back with like his Pokemon going out. David Attenborough is just throwing out different species that he's describing in the background for everyone that just go out and they just live their life. I think it would really bring a different vibe to the game that could really bring people together and learn something along the way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Deal. You sold
Yeah, I'm
me.
here for it.
Nintendo, I know you like said you're done with DLC, but get on this, man.
Well, there's actually maybe a good way to lead out of the episode. As of right now, the franchise future is uncertain. So Sakurai, I think, is done with the series. I'm sure they'll make more. Like it.
Oh, this.
You don't put out
yeah.
the best-selling fighting game of all time and then not make a sequel for people to enjoy. But it may be a couple years until we get the next one, I think.
We could probably use a couple years, to be honest, but I don't think the franchise future is uncertain. I think it's,
Well, it's
fairly
not like the games
certain.
aren't being played.
You know, it's
Still
it's
today.
uncertain on paper,
Yeah,
but we know.
but printing money is a certainty. Any closing thoughts before we say farewell?
Oh, I mean, thanks for sticking with us. I mean,
Yeah.
Smash is a lot to talk about.
And if people want to share their favorite characters with us, I think that'd be like a neat thing. I'd love to hear, you know, other perspectives or characters that maybe we just overlooked. What, you know, good or bad, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
who
and-
do you main and why?
Yeah, and tell me why my opinion sucks for liking the inferior games. I'm all about that discussion.
And if you're also a fan of PK Fire, let me know so I can berate Andrei about it further.
No, don't
Just-
let him know that one.
If you're that much of a fan, you should just get it tattooed on your forearm or something.
Oh, maybe that's what I do, yeah. That could be
Okay.
the next look.
If you have a
Stay tuned.
PK Fire tattoo, post that screenshot somewhere.
Before we break, Scott, did you have anything you wanted to plug for people?
Oh, I mean, thanks for listening, everyone. I mean, if you're interested in any of the work that I do, which is much less about fun games and much more about educational games, you can check my stuff out. I still tweet as much as it's a dumpster fire, so you can follow me on Twitter at SWB DeJong, DEJONG. And sometimes I post memes, sometimes I just hate that Twitter's dying, and sometimes I post other places that I am. So come hang out, come chill, and thanks for having me on the show, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being here. It was great. So that's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Have You Played?
Bye.
Oh, bam.